And we're live.
All right, welcome everybody. Today is the 16th of August, and we have a annual hearing this evening concerning the approving of our budget. And we do this so that we can get input from the community. And so we put the word out there for anyone that wanted to come in and speak to our budget, that this is the time that we take to hear from you on that. So with that, do I need to call for quorum?
Yes. Mr. Betcher, here. Ms. Cheney, here. Mr. Knet, Mr. Pridmanoff, Ms. Snyder,
here.
Mr. Van Horn, here.
Right. Aware that Mr. Knipp is attending a family funeral. So is there a motion to excuse Mr. Knipp?
Motion to excuse Mr. Knipp.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. I have not heard from Mr. Pridenoff. Is there a motion to excuse Mr. Pridenoff, or does anybody know what's?
I messaged him and heard back.
Okay.
Motion to excuse Mr. President. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, great. The next item here would be to ask our solicitor, Mr. Donnellan, to give us a little bit of context here.
Do we need to approve an agenda?
Motion to accept the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Donnellan?
Yeah, we're required by statute to approve our budget going forward into the next fiscal year, which would be 2022. Budget then will be delivered to the Hamilton County Auditor and Hamilton County Budget Commission for review and final approval. We asked for and received an extension to August 20, because typically this is due July 20. So I'll let Mr. Lanzer explain the details of the budget.
All right, so for consideration is the fiscal year 2022 tax budget. Tax budget is an initial estimate of revenues and appropriations used by entities to plan for the subsequent fiscal year. Tax budget is required to be assembled and submitted to the local county auditor for review and approval annually in July. Again, as Mr. Donnellan mentioned, due to continued uncertainty of fire and EMS services for the village administration had requested and received an extension on submission to the Hamilton County Auditor. Since that extension, village administration is more confident in the financial model for future fire and EMS services for the village residents. And as a result, village administration has been able to assemble the fiscal year 2022 tax budget for council and county auditor approval. I'll start with the revenues. For the most part, fiscal year 2022 general fund revenues mirror those from the previous fiscal year, with two notable exceptions. First, income tax receipts are increased from $785,000 as set in this year. It's increased to $820,000 for fiscal year 22. I was able to do this based on historical receipts from fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21. Village administration's confident in this income tax receipt forecast. Second, the intergovernmental revenue line item has been increased from $12,000 to $630,000. This was inputted to account for additional property tax revenue to be received by the village from the Little Miami Joint Fire and Rescue District that stems from the 14.05 mil fire levy that residents of the village are required to pay. The proceeds generated from this revenue source will be used to cover expenses on a future fire and EMS model for the village. Total village general fund revenue is expected to be $2,725,855. Total revenues for the police levy, that is 2903, is anticipated to be $238,000. Total revenue for the street levy is anticipated to be $317,000. In Exhibit 3 revenues, which are, go to page 4, Ron. All these special service funds is anticipated to total $377,000. As for expenditures, total general fund expenditures for the village are set to be $2,725,359. This amount is a 20% increase in expenditures when compared to those from this year, fiscal year 21. The general fund expenditures assume a 10% increase in employee health insurance premiums. Although I'd like to mention one of the advantages to switching to the new health insurance model was more state premium increases. They are averaging approximately 5% over the last few years. We built in some extra slack, but I don't think a 3% merit-based increase for employee compensation. Now, a key expenditure highlighted to note is an $84,000 increase in police enforcement. That's in the general fund. If you go back to one. Yeah. Police enforcement. The increase in this expenditure is due primarily to the anticipated increase in full-time department level staffing to bring total department staffing closer to the recommended full staffing level. We recently made a full-time hire, and we hope this budget is appropriating additional revenue to be used to get us closer to full-time staffing, whether that is an additional full-time officer or using that money to cover additional part-time expenses. Other highlights include a $583,000 increase in the mayor and administrative office's other line item. The purpose of this increase is to account for the additional expenses associated with the planned future fire and EMS model for the village. So the money goes in expenses, the money comes out. Here we have it coming out of the mayor. It's the administrative line item is what we're going to be paying fire services next year until we get this, make a determination on the levy. We have a fund already set up from a previous fire levy. I assume we can use that again, but we don't actually have that levy generated income at this time. For the general fund, the fiscal year 2022 tax budget is balanced and will result in a planned carryover balance of $880,000 to begin fiscal year $49,000. Total expenditures for the street levy are anticipated to be $300,000. And the exhibit pre-expenditures are anticipated to be $266,000. That is my summary of our budget here. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions?
I only have one question. It's sort of related to this. I saw that the letters for Regal went out about
Delinquent.
yeah. Is that something that's relatively consistent, or do you expect some recovery for that, or I wasn't sure?
I'm not sure. I haven't received. Yeah, but
So we're 2 years behind on that because they didn't do them last year. So the letters actually went out for 2019, not for 2018 and 2019.
Okay.
So we will recover some of that funding. Generally, what the letter will do is it'll goose the people who are actually going to file. And its next step is that they will get a subpoena to appear here in person with their shoebox full of receipts and stuff. And there will be an actual requirement to file their taxes for us. Anything beyond that, then there's legal action taken if they don't comply. I believe I recall Anna saying that there was an uptick in revenue because of that, but I can't recall offhand if it was.
I'm not sure how much it was. I'm not sure if it was. No, I will say this about income tax receipts. So we are ahead this year, or I'll touch on this in the regular meeting, but income tax receipts for July fiscal year 21 were $77,000. This is nearly $21,000 more than what the village received in July of last year in income tax receipts. Total income tax receipts for the year are $547,000, $61,000 more than what the village received through July of last year. So we are collecting more income tax.
Yeah. But we can't consider it because we don't know what it's going to be.
Exactly. I don't know what it is.
It hopefully
Rita,
positive thing.
I don't think Rita is very good at forecasting or communicating that.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect to guess on that. It would be. But I know basically, I know Reed is helping, and it looks like we still are. in terms of-
Certainly more efficient. in collection.
Yeah, improving our collection.
So you might recall during the pandemic last year, the general advice to us was to cut our budget by 20%. We didn't have 20% to cut because we don't flush our budget. So that's a good relative thing to compare, because if we get to the end of this year and we have increased those revenues, we'll see that reflected in the carryover at the end of the year, which is the reserve. So the reserve has taken probably about $150,000 hit so far this year. We had thought it would be worse, but
That was my only question. Thank you.
Yeah. The only item for consideration later in the year that comes to mind right now would be that $300,000 expenditure level street levy. We are taking several loans and we are carrying $1.4 million. We could pay off one of those loans early, specifically the Stover loan if we want to. I'm not sure what the balance is. We paid 4 payments on that, and the loans are for 20 years. I guess I'm just bringing that up because I see the county auditor saying you guys are carrying too much money.
What kind of interest do we pay?
Zero.
So the benefit of paying it early is,
We wouldn't carry some.
so a lot of that depends on whether or not we're able to fund the reheat project. So if there's no decision on funds yet, if that doesn't come through, we'll apply for a skip grant for next year. If that happens, then it'll probably be half and half again. It's a $1.2 million project, so half of it will be a loan, half of it will be paid for through grants. So if for some reason we wouldn't have a major road project in 2023, we may want to consider paying down one of the projects that we're taking on. Keep in mind that Elbrook from Losanaville to Cincinnati is being fully funded by the village. We did not get a loan for that. And part of the reasoning is we're holding so much cash on hand for that. Right now, it just makes sense to focus.
The loans are for 20 years. The life cycle of the streets, probably not 20 years. I would hate to take on 2 loans.
Right.
For the streets.
this steps back a little bit, but for the sake of people watching from home, if there is anybody, we contract with the Regional Income Tax Authority to do the tax. That's RETA. That's what we've been talking about. We were mentioning that in prior years, there's money that we know we didn't get, and there's a lot of letters that are going out right now from RETA to residents saying, you know, we didn't get your taxes back in 2018, we didn't get them back in 2019. The simple fact that we're getting so many returns now, I think, is evidence that it was a good decision to go to the Regional Income Tax Authority. One of the things that for all of you that have filed your taxes here recently may have noticed is you can file them online now, which makes things, of course, a lot easier.
Do you need a motion to approve?
Just a motion to recommend that it go forward to legislation.
So moved.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Sounds like it's unanimous without objection. All right,
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for your service.
And we are offline.